how it will affect the media business in the future. Because the media business, as you can see, and I've heard probably in most of the panels already in some way, it's going to change. It's not only going to change in terms of programmatic, it's also going to change in terms of the relevance of media. And these guys, I've met one of these guys in Singapore when we had our Singapore satellite event. One of them has been a keynote speaker last year here, and we have a wonderful lady as well participating. And we've got a great moderator. Ideally, we can have the back slide here so you can see who is on the panel and who is participating on the panel, because that would help. And I can introduce the moderator. He's also a very smart and clever gentleman. He's working for the IAB, and he is the CMO there, but also the Executive Vice President. So please welcome David Doty.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know that I'm clever, but I'm certainly here. And I am humbled by the fact I was here last year, and I'm humbled by this stage set, which I understand must have just been built for me in this panel. So I think you heard that this is the CEO media debate. Thank you all for being here. You're going to hear some, I hope, interesting insights from my august panel over the next few minutes about the digital factor and what's happening in the minds of global media agency leaders. But first, let me ask you to join me in welcoming a truly international group here today. Kate Robertson, who's the global president and UK group chairman, Havas Worldwide, based in London. Mainardo de Nardis, CEO, OMD Worldwide, based in New York. And Prashant Kumar, President, World Markets, Asia Pacific, IPG Media Brands, based in Kuala Lumpur. A quick overview of the kind of talent you have here today. Kate currently has in her remit Havas Worldwide London, Havas Worldwide London PR, Havas People, the Maitland Consultancy, Conran Design Group, Havas EHS, and the Havas Work Club. They were Digital Agency of the Year in 2012, exactly, and 2013 in Marketing Week and Campaign magazines, respectively. In 2009, Kate was responsible for bringing together young leaders from every country in the world with an idea called One Young World, which has been dubbed the Junior Davos by CNN. This year's annual summit will be held in Dublin next month and will be attended by 1,500 delegates from 196 countries, more than any other youth event worldwide than the Olympics. So in one surprising fact about Kate that she told me, with 15,000, you're not going to believe this, with 15,000 employees across Havas Worldwide, she recently took the crown of being the oldest member of the agency. Does anybody here really believe that? Mainardo de Nardis delivers on an aggressive agenda, one agency unified by an ambitious vision of one way of working across geography and one way of working across geographies. This has allowed OMD under his leadership to become the largest media agency network in the world, managing more global clients than any other agency. He is the former CEO of Aegis Media and NBC Worldwide, and under his tenure since 1999, OMD has been named 3 times Global Media Agency of the Year by Adweek and recognized as the most creative media agency by the Gunn Report, highly respected in the United States, for an unprecedented 8th time in a row. And a surprising fact about Mainardo, he has a second career in winemaking. His family business, based in Italy, has been producing wine for more than 160 years. He guarantees me he hasn't had any to drink before he came out here today. And it's exported globally and under the label?
Gantra.
Okay. And we'll find out if you're better at fermenting grapes or generating transformational insights today. But at any rate, he says it's the same thing. It's all about storytelling. Prashant Kumar oversees operations across 16 countries in APAC. He became the CEO of its Malaysia operations at 32, served on the Cannes Lions jury at 33, that was last year, and led the agency to win 5 consecutive Agency of the Year wins in the country. He launched the pioneer social media offering Rally in 2009, and that's now operating across 30 countries and 3 continents. He's a relentless strategist, relentless innovator, and yet a failed .com entrepreneur, probably like many of you in this room. He is celebrated as a hybrid, truly native leader to the digital generation. And a surprising fact about Kumar, turns out he's a licensed pilot. And the very first time he was coming in for a solo landing, he suddenly sees that there are no runway lights, and he's told by the tower that behind him is a passenger 737 jet, and he better land, and he better land correctly. Obviously, it worked. Let's see how he can lead us today into a good landing. So my first question, thank you all again for joining. My first question for you is, we've only got 30 minutes, so not a lot of time here. What I keep seeing again and again, I just saw it in the Wall Street Journal. It's not news, it's not new, but it continues to make news. And that's the idea that marketers and publishers are taking in-house many of the services that media agencies provide. Heidi Browning, for instance, the SVP of Strategic Solutions at Pandora, was quoted in the Wall Street Journal as saying, "Our mission is to position Pandora as more than just a media buy." So how is that kind of development that's been happening for a while now, but continues to make news, how does that challenge your business or doesn't it? And does this work by publishers on behalf of your clients disenfranchise you or create a new opportunity? Kate, can I?
It's different looking at it from the point of view of the creative agencies versus the media agencies. But it doesn't change the fact that it is something clients going in-house, even with the creative services, it's a trend. I wouldn't say it's approaching 30% of the market, but it certainly is a trend. For me, it simplifies down to one issue and one issue only, and that's where the talent is. Because if the talent that you bring in-house is not as good as you think you can get outside, that's a really simple conclusion, what's going to happen there. I think clients doing it to save money, you're going to get economies of scale. You won't necessarily get economies of excellence.
That's a great insight. Economies of scale, but not economies of excellence. Mainardo, are you wrestling with these same issues?
No, I think it's an opportunity, not a threat. Mm-hmm. I think that the opportunity to work, especially with the tech team that is behind the development of whatever opportunity a publisher has to present, working with the people who've created the opportunity is important. It gives us different ways, especially at the beginning, especially with a new opportunity. It gives us ways to have better insights into what can be achieved. And we see it as a partnership, of course, working together with all the other agencies that are involved in that specific project. Nothing wrong with it. I think the objectives are different. Their objective is to facilitate entry to their opportunity.
Right.
Our objective is to make sure that we got the right messages, the right opportunity for our clients.
Right, right.
I mean, I would agree to what Mainardo said. I think it's not new. At various points of time when new technologies have emerged, certain players who felt that the current creative vocabulary does not cater to their needs sufficiently, then they have extended their hands and tried to meddle into creativity to some extent. So nothing new, and we are not alarmed. It's welcome. On the other front, I would also say that, of course, when it comes to the creative industry, the entry barriers are low. But to be able to do good creative work at scale year after year across 100 countries for thousands of clients
excellence
at a
scale.
10% average margin, I'm not sure if, let's say, these technology giants want to get into that business. I mean, that would be margin dilutive.
Is it because they have a lot of cash to spend?
They have fat margins. Why would they want to get into a low-margin industry like advertising? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, if Facebook goes to
I think it's fair question on the margin, but it doesn't change the fact that it's happening. They are doing it.
Right.
It will happen, but I never see it becoming really a mass, mainstream, head-on threat to our industry.
So then why, like when I think about this, you have all these consultants like Accenture, for instance, getting into the business of being agencies. And Walmart, I just saw in the US, it's saying, we're going to build our own media buying platform. We don't necessarily need the media buying agencies to target our audiences. Last night, people were saying, well, you know, you're going to be speaking with some of these top media agency folks. Can you ask them what they think about marketers bringing programmatic buying in-house? So you got all these challenges going on. So can we set this straight once and for all? What's the value of a great media buying agency, and how do you deal with this when it comes to your clients?
The question is, how good, do you know how good you are? If you're bringing it in-house, do you know how good you are? Do you know what you're competing against? You don't. You're just competing against your consumer.
Right, right.
I think what you're saying is that our next challenges and the competition for the future is coming from outside the industry and not inside the industry. I can sort of agree, but you've got to divide it, because you talked about many different things. Strategic consultants, we've been talking about it for 20 years, about them competing with media agencies. It still hasn't happened. Yes, they've got good relationship with the C-suite. Yes, they've got a strategic leadership with many of the companies they work with, but I genuinely don't see any opportunity for them to enter our business in a competitive way, because I don't think there is any profit for them. I don't think it makes sense from a business perspective. You mentioned Walmart. Again, yes, they've got a lot of clout, especially with CPG clients, and they could force them as part of the negotiation to use their services. But why? Just to benefit from their indeed rich data, but that's a small part of the market. And yeah, true, we could lose a little bit of our business to that. But again, I don't see what advantage a Walmart would have to enter that business.
Could it be a price negotiation strategy?
It could be.
It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, to add to what he said, I think we go back to the question of where do we really add maximum business value?
Yes.
And if you look at that question and realize that communication strategy and creative ideas is where we bring the maximum value, then most of these guys, Accenture or Adobe, are focused on the left brain side of our industry.
Yeah.
The whole, the entire whole, the right brain side is still untouched, and they do not have core skills in those areas. The other aspect is that if you look, divide our industry into strategic and operational, then they seem to be focused on the operational side. Right. And operational side of our industry is anyway getting, is highly commoditized, and clients really want to pay for that much. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a natural process of automation, very critical. Definitely a competition, but I mean, it would remain limited in certain ways in the foreseeable future.
And I think, I think the other point is the scalability, because a small team of people can always deliver something excellent once. I think an agency has to deliver it to thousands of clients across hundreds of markets every single day of the year. And to do that, you need talent, you need systems, you need experience, you need benchmarking. That's hard.
Right,
to do it once in one market is always possible. To do it thousands of times in every market every single day is a challenge.
So they might have the CEO access, but they don't necessarily have that kind of broad, in a place like consultancy, doesn't have that kind of broad experience in that very market.
No, and I'm not sure there's a business logic for anybody else to create it.
Right.
But if they do it, there must be a business opportunity.
The only from a creative industry side, the business logic when it comes to strategic consultancy, I still think, even 20, 30 years later, strategic consultancy for our side of the business is definitely about owning a client relationship. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that we have lost some of our leadership in that field. And weirdly and unhappily enough, it is sitting with the big consultancy firms. It is sitting with PwC, KPMG, Accenture, and so on. And
McKinsey.
It's a threat to our, yeah.
So how are you going to get it back?
Sorry,
Go
just
ahead,
one little caveat.
Not getting it back.
Obviously, we do not want to underestimate the threat or the opportunity that it presents. I believe that whatever is our core business value proposition, which is strategy and creativity, if we can reframe it in the context of the marketing technologies that have emerged, I think that would bring a golden future for our industry. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're not bringing it back.
I would just add one thing, that I think versus 10 years ago, we've become a lot more open source. And I think that every agency today has to learn to work in different ways.
For sure.
Taking inside the work of strategic consultants, specialized agencies in different areas. We have to learn to work better together as teams in the interest of the client. While 10, 20 years ago, we could work in splendid isolation, which doesn't exist anymore.
We have to do it, and I still don't think we're finding it easy.
You brought up
It's a
the
challenge.
issue of...
It's essential, but it's a challenge.
And you brought up the issue before of talent. So you're obviously competing, right, against
It's called
large
Google.
right?
It's called Google.
Right.
Google.
Well, you
Google.
know, as a member of IAB, let me
You
just
go to
say,
go to
we
Google,
love
David.
Google, but you know, you've got to compete against stock
Google.
options. Let's put it that way. You've got to compete against stock options, or Google, and you've got to compete against the consultant firms. How are you doing that for talent? How are you going to win the war for talent, or how are you attempting to win that war?
By creating a new ecosystem of talent, by importing skills from non-agency areas. If we want to reframe our offering for the future, it cannot be done with the same mix of skills that we have existed all along. So it needs to be reskilled, the ecosystem needs to be reset, and the definition of what value we bring to the clients need to be completely reframed.
Right.
I think there is one word to win the talent war, which is winning. Talent wants to go in agencies which are winning. Winning new clients, winning awards, attracting more talent. They want to be with winners. That's the way that you get the best talent. Nobody wants to go to an agency that is never winning anything.
Well,
I
maybe
think
we should
you've got
ask
to
the
look at the
audience here.
youngsters.
Who
I think
wants to
you've-
go to an agency now? Does anybody want to raise your... You want to go to an agency now? Well, we do have one
We've
over
got one
here.
candidate, good.
We do have one candidate.
She works at Google.
He. All right. Well, let's shift over to mobile. You know, because everybody's talking about it. We know it's how important it is. We heard about Apple's announcements yesterday. How are you helping your clients maneuver in a cross-screen world? So what I just read, of course, the Global Mobile Advertising Revenue Report was put out by the IAB Europe, and IHS Technology, and it showed, no surprise here, that mobile ad spend soared a massive 92% in 2013 over the last full year measure, 2012. How are you guys buying mobile? What are the challenges? What are the rewards? How do you find people in the right mood at the right moment?
I believe that when it comes to mobile, we are still in a tween age. It's a very personal medium, which means that all the usage that you have your mobile for can be nailed down to one identifiable ID, which means that actually all that data can be used to predict, anticipate what will make you happy. So data could enhance human happiness with the help of mobile capture data. It could curate, it could correlate, it could find information and entertainment that would make you happy, or connections or utility. That is an incredible power, because I mean, Marshall McLuhan talked about internet as being an extension of your consciousness. Mobile becomes an extension of your brain, actually giving you extra sensory perception.
An extension of my happiness.
ESP,
I like that idea.
premonition, intuition. I mean, data can anticipate. That is an incredibly
And
powerful.
how are you going to be able to find me? Like what I do in mobile, in a post-cookie world, right? So if I'm doing something in mobile that I'm not doing in other spaces, or if I'm doing something on one device, I've got like 3 or 4, right? I assume most people here do, right? And so we're on all these different devices. How are you going to find us in this cross-screen environment and make us happy, as Prashant has just promised to do?
I agree with Prashant. I think we've got to separate the mobiles and mobility. Because on one side, you've got the platforms, the telephone, the in-car entertainment system, the out-of-home connected online, whatever else are the platforms which are on the road. On the other side, you've got mobility, which is what Prashant was talking about, which is attitude, which is movement, which is consumers on the move, which is understanding the need of somebody who's on the move and what kind of communication you can give them. And that's more than a technology issue, and let's not go in the cookie area, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's an imagination issue. What is the best way to create a message which is relevant to the context, is relevant to the specific moment and location in which the person is in that specific moment?
I think the interesting thing with mobile is this is where the message is not just a message, it's what it's adding to your life and how useful it can be. For example, we were looking at something yesterday on your mobile phone that can tell you when the atmosphere, say bright lights or a noise or pollution, is going to give you a headache, that your phone can actually tell you that. My concern with it is that we've got to, working with you guys, we've got to have, as you said, the imagination and the knowledge to know that a phone can do such a thing. Who knew? I didn't know. Did you know? No. And not only that, we have to develop in-house the skills to create whatever appears on the screen for that size, that shape, and that technology. And until 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't have the skills in-house to do that. We all said we did. We don't.
You don't.
It doesn't look fantastic on your phone. We don't have those skills. So it's both the knowledge of the thing can do, matching it to the brand, and then these guys swoop in with the data play. But it's a whole bunch of new stuff for all of us every single hour. It's not even every day it's new, it's every hour.
I think what you're inspiring me to think about here is the Internet of Things, right? So it's obviously on many people's minds. IoT, you know, when something in this business gets its own acronym, it's really important for the insiders to know that it's IoT and what that means. But I just saw a survey in the US, let me look at these exact figures here. Only 19% of women and 19% of men and 8% of women have even heard the term Internet of Things, yet alone know what IoT is. So if we're having a difficult time designing for, you know, mobile devices, and here and you're talking about mobility in a broader way than a device way, how are you thinking about taking advantage of the Internet of Things? What do you think of the Apple Watch? Who has one? Anybody have an Apple Watch? Want to show us?
My Sean hasn't got
Okay.
one of my guys is there. He hasn't got one, so nobody has.
Okay.
I think it's a bit early. We've got to wait
He's a cool guy.
Just
We've got to
wanted
wait
to
a few
check
more
if we
weeks.
had anybody.
Listen, we've been talking for 5 years about being the year of the mobile, and finally we're getting there 5 years later. I don't think we've yet declared the year of IoT.
IoT.
We've got some way to go. I don't think it's important that customers understand what IoT is. They have to benefit from the service. And our job, I think, again, is about imagination, because we will have new platforms and new opportunities for storytelling and to talk about consumers, about specific brand experiences in a way which is relevant to the context, relevant to the platform, and provides a utility or a service or a story.
So explain, how does that work in terms of scale? So each time what I'm hearing here today is, you know, you're adapting to the device, you're adapting to the moment, you're adapting to the individual. How can you scale a business like that? Aren't your businesses based on scale and not just the scale of excellence, which is a great line, by the way. But how are you thinking about that kind of issue?
Probably you are thinking in terms of fragmentation by devices, but the reality is that let's say on a typical day, people are using 20 to 25 different connected objects. What we are actually talking about is a personal ecosystem of networked objects, all right? And that entire ecosystem, the data pool is one. And that data is incredibly powerful, and all the devices are contributing to that, and it's uniquely identifiable. And going back to, and we spoke about mobile being an extension of our brains and having extra sensory powers. Just imagine what kind of brain that data pool could have. And ultimately, that data pool could start not just monitoring, but managing our lives in certain ways. So we are almost talking about like an exo brain, where you have these 20, 25 devices talking to each other.
And I think
it ultimately, I know this is a bit sort of soylent green, but ultimately it is a scary thing. Ultimately, it is Minority Report.
So,
You know, whilst
So-
Google and the data is in the hands
I'm
of the good
excited.
guys, whilst the data is in the hands of the good guys, it's all fine. And when it's not,
I disagree. I think it's fascinating.
it's
And,
fascinating. It's not boring, but it's
No.
scary.
Well,
When you're as old as me, it's scary.
well, quite obviously, no one's as old as you are at your firm, but nonetheless.
Just look at the kind of excitement
that's
Tinder
a
has brought
gentleman
to
for you. Yes.
Well, she
Nobody's
said
as
it.
old as you.
She said it. But I think you're saying something very important here, and I don't disagree that there's a lot of opportunity in data, but I also don't disagree with your gut notion that people, consumers out there are worried, and we have the responsibility to let them know not to be worried. How are we going to do that? Like, in what way do
I don't think the
agencies play?
consumer is worried at all. They're used to have millions of platforms now talking to them and sharing stories or information. I think that from our point of view, I mean, we've been investing in technology and data for a long time, and technology has been our biggest investment after talent. And I think that now with the IoT, we're just adding a number of platforms and a lot more data, which makes it more relevant and more interesting. It gives us opportunity to use it and to better understand the context. And again, imagination and the storytelling that we can have with the customer going from platform to platform, just adding another 5, 10, 15, 20, or whatever the number is.
Right, right. So we have no fear about any sort of regulation or
But
anything.
don't you think it was
if we don't
interesting-
act,
I-
But it
because
was
the
interesting
consumers
when the
aren't
I
worried?
prisons-
believe that as long as we are honest with people, there is a fair value exchange, a meaningful value exchange. When you give your data, you get commensurate value. I think that's a fair ask, right?
But it was interesting when the
I
IS and the PRISM story broke.
Right.
What I thought was interesting, certainly in the UK, was media commentators and newsmen and journalists being shock horror. Don't you think this is terrible? And we all just went, meh.
You're right, right, exactly. Yeah, I think we feel a lot of that in the U.S.
big
too.
stuff.
So, I know it's been really fast. We've only got another couple of minutes, so I have two last questions for you. The first last question, or penultimate question, is one about fraud. So I heard about it earlier here today.
Grace one.
I've been here about, great, let's talk about, are your clients calling you every day and saying, oh my God, you're buying all this fraudulent inventory, fix it for me? What are they saying to you?
They're not, and I wouldn't be at the sharp end the way that these two guys are, but it's a grey swan. It's not going to be a black swan in as much as it's not going to come out of nowhere in something that we haven't seen, but it's always possible. This audience is so young. I bet you there are a couple of them in here who are perfectly capable of the IT skills required to commit that fraud. So,
Could those of you who are committing fraud raise your hand? What do you think about that?
I think it's a big issue. I mean, we're not going to sort it in the next 30 seconds. I think the industry doesn't yet have a solution. I think make goods are a good effort in the right direction, and we all work in that area, but it's not a solution. I think that we'll have to learn how to measure fraud as a data input,
That's
and,
what I think is important.
and make it part of
Let's
the
really
planning
find out
and evaluation
how
process.
big a problem it is. We're certainly committed to that too. Yeah, that's important.
I think it's a very critical issue, and we are responsible to ensure that it is minimized, the right kind of protocols and processes are set in order to minimize it. It's a transitional phenomenon. There's a lot of chaos. Obviously, there are all sorts of
It'll be
characters
there.
trying to take
Yeah.
advantage of that. So, but it will pass,
It will pass.
with the right kind of
Because we will
protocols and
fix
processes.
it,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
We're gonna commit to that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the very last question, with less than 5 minutes to go, is how do you see the next 5 years? What do you see in your own businesses, in the industry, in your own personal lives that can inspire us as folks who've come here today to hear from you as leaders in this industry? Where do you see things going, and where's the great stuff in the
That's a
future?
beautiful question. I see certain sections in our industry talking about wistfully about that golden era of advertising and stuff like that. I believe that there never was a golden age in advertising.
Huh.
The golden age in our industry lies ahead.
Maybe
the
you
next,
weren't born
in
yet
the next
during
10
the
years.
golden age of
Maybe,
advertising.
but I believe that it lies in front of us. Never before media has been so central to human society. People live their lives through media today. They shop, they bank, they get educated, make friends, fall in love through media. Everybody is interested in our industry. Google, Facebook, Amazon, Accenture, Adobe. I mean, we must be sitting on a gold mine.
Right, right.
So I'm incredibly excited about where our industry is headed. And I believe that the golden age for our industry lies in the future, not in the past.
Right.
So I'm very excited.
That's great.
I think that just looking at a more recent phenomenon like Uber, take as an example, I think that the shared economy or the collaborative economy will give us even more opportunities in the future, and I look forward to it as a very interesting challenge where technology can help us to put together availabilities which could be wasted and needs from consumers. It doesn't matter if it is in travel, in entertainment, in carpooling, or in whatever else. But if we can put the two together, the availability of a service and the need for it, and use technology to match it, every single customer every single person you meet in the street is a value exchange opportunity. I find that absolutely fascinating.
Right.
And if you think of the opportunities for our clients that we can create on the back of that, it could be unique next 5 years.
And certainly the issue that you brought up frequently here today, storytelling, out over the future, and all these new opportunities. Do you see that resting more with the clients, or it doesn't really matter, more with consumers?
I think it's everybody, as we were saying before. It's we must learn to work in an open source economy where we've got to put things together, where we have to become integrators, not necessarily inventors of things.
Right.
And we've got to learn a new way of doing it because agencies naturally don't work that way.
Right. It's okay.
I think it's fantastic to work in this industry, to one of your points, to work in an industry that is absolutely on the edge of all of this new development, of this entire new ecosystem. And I think the thing that is exciting about it is this ecosystem will be the channels by which the world is changed and by which the world improves. I mean, you look at something like the Arab Spring and say, well, depending on your point of view, it hasn't ended very well. But it doesn't change the fact that the media that we're talking about, the changes we're talking about, were not the cause or the result of that revolution, but were part of the ecosystem. And we work on that. And over time, I think great change does lead to eventually to better things for humankind. And I think it's just such a privilege to work in this industry and to just have a chance to just touch the knowledge that this is. I think is fantastic.
Right, and for future generations, what's interesting is, of course, you are of the native digital generation, and to know that coming behind this is a yet unborn generation that will see things we can't even imagine is quite inspiring.
I don't think it's as young as you think, by the way. But, just pointing that out.
Child!
Well, that's an interesting way to stop. How old are you, Mainardo? No, thank you very much. We appreciate your spending time with us here today. Kate, Mainardo, Prashant, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. Couldn't resist it.
Just to set the record straight here.